Right. I want to change this up. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I want to change the intro up. Just dive right in. We're here another week. We got John. I got Austin. And we're going to have a conversation. So we're going to pop right in. Does that sound good?
Do the people know what time it is? Do they know what time?
No, dude. But I mean, I'm sure there's the you know, the type of guy out there that if we told them what time it was, they'd be like, "Oh, dude, I've already been up for 4 hours."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True. That's true.
Yeah,
And be like, I thought this was supposed to be like a man's podcast. You know what I mean? And I'm longing for that day to where like my eyelids pop open at 4 and I got no issues. Like I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I think people who say that are just people who just can't sleep. You know, then they just take that and say, and like use it to their advantage. Like, yeah, I wake up at 4.
Yeah, I wake up at 4.
It's like, no, you just can't sleep. You know, that's how that works. You know,
Or it's just like a way to show off.
Yeah,
you know?
For me, it's like I can sleep, so I choose not to wake up until about 6:37, 7:15. You know.
Yeah.
But other people who are like, yeah, just wake up at 4. You're like, no, bro, you just don't sleep.
The question is, what time do you go to sleep?
Yeah.
Because you wake up at 4, but like if you're in bed at 8:30, like congratulations. That's good, healthy life.
Good, healthy for sure. The reason why I am the type of person that I am, like I have to get a good night's sleep. If not, productivity is down. Quality of conversation is down. You know what I mean? So 8 hours, I'm looking to get 8 hours.
How do
you know what I mean?
what do you do to create these rhythms to make sure you get this healthy sleep?
This is
the real podcast. This is the real tips.
To be honest, like my kids are at an age to where like they sleep, so I don't have to struggle with like we do. You know, we do like our night routine where we pray and do all the things, right? So, but like I'm not like waking up at 5 a.m. because my kids can't sleep anymore. My kids will sleep in until like 9, 10 o'clock. So it works out. However, we have work. So we got to get up. So, you know, I do the math the night before. Oh, I got to get up by 6. If it's Tuesday, I got to get up by 5. I'll make sure that the night before, like, all right, I'm going to bed.
Nice.
Time to go to bed.
Yeah.
You know, create some margins. Have a little bit of healthy margins in my life.
Yeah, I'm trying to be in bed by 10:30 every night. You know, like I'm like, I don't know if I'm just like feeling like an old man lately, you know what I mean? But I'm like kind of liking it. You know, I'm kind of like, this is kind of a nice lifestyle. Like I'm getting the urge to like go to bed earlier. I'm getting the urge to like cut some grass. I'm getting the urge to like wear comfy shoes.
Okay, hold on. So
yeah, it's like something's happening.
How old are you?
31.
Okay, so you're breaking into your 30s. This is completely normal.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, enjoy it. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like shifting into this season where comfy shoes over like, and we're men, so like most of our shoes are comfy anyway. Women have like, I don't know how they go through it, like with the high heels and all the things, and they're like, no, it's for the sake of looking a certain way, we'll put ourselves through a little torment. No, dude, we'll put on some slippers.
Yeah.
Right?
I was just having this conversation with Casey the other day, and we were talking about like, you know, you're adulting when you just like roll up somewhere and you're like, man, this place got great landscaping. You know, it's like there's signs. You know, there's signs where you start to tell yourself like, yeah, this is really happening, and I'm actually like stepping into this next season. And I'm enjoying every second of it. You know,
yeah.
It's like I have been following these guys on Facebook that just cut grass, and it's just like the greatest thing ever. And I'm like learning how to scalp grass, how to like punch it, you know, get it ready for the season. And I just cannot wait till I can cut my own grass. You know, like my lifelong goal is to have like a ride mower. You know,
okay.
And just
you want a big enough.
That's what I want.
Ventura,
man.
that might not be a thing.
Might not be a thing. I might just have to go cut my friend's grass. That's where I'm at. I'm at a season of life where I'm just like, I'm having the itch to cut some grass. I just might have to just call some people up and be like, hey, can I come over? Just, you know, that's where I'm at. So
it's so fun. Have you seen the comedian Nate? I forget how he pronounces his last name, Bargatze or whatever.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah.
So he has a bit in one of his stand-ups where he goes like, he's talking about this, what we're talking about. And he goes, in our 20s, in my 20s, when someone would call me to go out, he's like, let's go. Like, no questions asked. By the time it was 30, it was like, where are we going?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How late are we staying out?
Yeah.
And then by the time he was 40, he was like, I'll drive separate. Like, it was like,
yeah,
you know
totally.
what I mean?
Totally.
Just the growth in our age. So we'll get into a good conversation. But before we jump in, we're going to talk about healthy communication. And I texted you guys yesterday because I really do feel that way. Like when I think of, and again, it's the idea that is there somebody out there that can speak in a better way than we can? Sure. right? So it's not like we're like the number one people that you can come to for this topic, but I do think that you guys communicate very well in the sense of like, you guys aren't emotional when you're emotional when you want to be emotional. You're intentional with the way that you communicate. You guys are respectful. You guys, some people talk, maybe that's me, and you go like, this guy's not really thinking through what he's saying. You know what I'm saying? So all that being said, I highly honor the way that you guys communicate in business and relationship. I know, John, you preach from time to time, and so just in your communication of the gospel to the church, and Austin, you're working into that space. And so I wanted to have this conversation centered around healthy communication. But John, you just got back from a missions trip.
I did.
And I didn't tell you we were going to talk about this, but like hit us with like 1 to 2 highlights of where you went, why you went, and what happened. We were talking, I don't know if you got that recorded before, but having to spray your room with Raid and then give it a 10-minute breather before you went to sleep. That's not necessarily a highlight.
More than 10 minutes. And it did actually. So the first night we were there, the missions family that we were with, the guy was like, hey, we're going to come in here. We're going to spray this room with Raid. That's how we make sure there's no bugs, there's no mosquitoes when you go to sleep. But we just want to do it early enough so we don't forget. But I only did that the first night. After that, I was like, look, we're going to leave this AC running. We're going to keep all the doors shut. We're going to keep the windows shut. Like we're going to manage this room a little bit better. So, the 19-year-old I was traveling with had to continue to remind him like, hey, shut the door, shut the door. Cause brother, there ain't nothing like the mosquitoes just hitting your bald head in the middle of the night. So, yeah, but no, just got back from a trip. We were in Laos, Cambodia, and Indonesia. The purpose of the trip really was more of a vision trip, if you want to call it that, as far as going and meeting and some of the people who I've already been in communication with, whether that be online or like introductions from other ministry leaders that I know. So you start to talk to people, you chat with people, you might hop on some calls with them, you might even help do some teachings and some equipping, but then it really gets to a point where like in the relationship, you're like, are we doing this long term? Or because when I come into partnership, I like to really, it's like it's a long-term friendship, even if it's not financial giving or long-term equipping or whatever the Lord has on it, it's going to be a covenant community. So you start to talk to someone long enough and you're like, all right, it's time to go get on the ground, see what you do, how you do it, pray with you, dream with you over your ministry. And so that was really the heart of what we went and did. And I mean, some of the highlights I would say is the amount of people that we met over the last 2.5 weeks is like insurmountable. We met, I can't even count all of them. Not just ministry leaders and missionaries, but also just locals and local business leaders. And we just probably every day we're sitting down with at least 2 or 3 people or 2 or 3 families or 2 or 3 ministries, just having long meals, long conversations about life. How'd you meet Jesus? Hearing testimonies, hearing how they met their wife, how they, what their kids are doing. So it was really, really special to be able to like just sit and listen, which was actually really cool because I got a word from somebody like 2 days before I left. And the text message said, hey, I really feel like the Lord wants you to listen on this trip more than anything. And I mean, that's what we did. Planes, trains, automobiles, the whole thing, but really sat with people and like heard incredible stories and testimonies. And ultimately in that, you're like, one, it's so incredible and so inspiring to be sitting with somebody in a completely different cultural context than you that has fallen in love with Jesus and knows nothing about you or your own culture or questions or doubts or anything. So being with them was just so inspiring. And then in that, it's like, cool, now, we have long-term real friendships with people in these countries that are brothers and sisters in Christ, as well as what's looking like hopefully longer partnerships to do ministry with.
That's cool. I just, I'm in the middle of that book by, I think it's John Mark Comer, Practicing the Way, and he's talking about the way that Jesus did ministry, right? So kind of like simplifying this for those of us that overcomplicate it in the Christian world, so that Jesus just had meals with people. I mean, Jesus did a lot more, so just had meals with people, but like that was one of the biggest parts of his ministry, was sitting down and having meals with people. Yeah. To just uncomplicate this for people. So discipleship, ministry, breaking bread was one of the things that Jesus did to, you know what I mean, reach people, get into their lives. So just kind of like what you're talking about. So I'm like, that's, for me, that's so refreshing to go like, we're going to break bread anyway. Why not invite people over to the house? Or maybe somebody wants to invite me over to their house and break bread over there. But like just uncomplicating it in a way that's like, I'm sure you guys had great conversation and stuff like that. And so the point is, for your ministry, for people that don't know, is like you support people that are doing the missions work in these other countries. You're looking to support other leaders that are already in these spaces. Is that my correct understanding of kind of?
Yeah, that's the gist of it. I'd say less. We have really tight relationships with missionaries that are in other countries of the world. But really, it's like finding and locating, being led by the Lord to meet what I call local leaders. So just leaders that are in these regions of the world that are local to that area, that have been born and raised in that area, or sent by God, anointed, called to do ministry, build a church. And a lot of times through missionary relationships, they'll introduce us to these folks. So those are the people we get really excited about supporting.
That's cool. Did you go and visit Seth on this trip?
Oh yeah, it was a blast. He's actually coming next week.
That's what he's going to be
this week
leading worship on Sunday. So I'm excited to see him and the family. Yeah,
okay,
it'll be fun.
It was so awesome hanging with him. He's a blast.
He is a great individual. Yeah. I really do.
It's wild to see how much he's done in just 1 year in Indonesia, because I think he's at the 1 year mark now.
Okay.
And what his ministry does, how they're established, and what they do, it's just like, it's so cool, man.
That's cool.
Yeah, Seth is doing great things.
I'm excited to see him. It'll be good. All right, well, let's dive in here. So first question right out the gate, because I think this plays a lot into how we develop the way that we communicate, is what did it look like in your guys' home, like communication as a whole? Your parents to you, like what did that look like growing up, right? And then Austin, I don't know, let's shoot it to you first, because you have that look on your face like you're not ready for it. So what do you think?
I mean, early on, like as early as I can think back, like I don't think my parents communicated well. I think they were very young when they had me and my brother. And so I think they were still learning how to be an adult, but, had 2 kids. I think my mom had John when she was 17 and then me at 19. And then, they were married, and, by the time they were 20, 21, they had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And so I think early on communication wasn't healthy. It was very chaotic and back and forth and, arguing and the whole nine. And then when my stepdad kind of came into our lives a couple of years later, I felt like he was a lot older, he was a little more established. And I think naturally, like for my mom, like going from, my dad, who was younger, to like a more established person, in life, I think came with a little bit more healthy communication. And so, but I think, that's just kind of my first memory, my first thoughts on communication in general. Is like that's kind of what we experienced, was a lot of yelling and arguing back and forth. Everyone trying to be the loudest in the room. And so,
yeah. So where does your guys' communication get developed then? Because that's not necessarily abnormal, right? If you ask a lot of people, their home life is going to be like, mom and dad were fighting, mom and dad were yelling. Like my kids were probably younger because we're all trying to figure it out when we're in our 20s, to be honest. And not that I don't raise my voice now in my home, but if Carissa and I spat now, it's not like yelling or verbal assaults, right? Which we can get into in a little bit, because that is part of my past as well. But we all have similar testimonies to that. I'd be curious to know how many people. Matt, were your parents yellers? No. Okay, so would you say that they had healthy communication, or were like, what, you know what I mean?
For the most part, yeah. My dad had a temper, so he'd always be quiet, but when he went off, like he threw me into a wall once where I was like stuck in the wall.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. And obviously you didn't forget.
Wow. Okay.
When I was thinking about this and I was like writing down examples like of like me growing up, there were some very vivid memories. Because I don't listen, like you try to think about stuff when you're a kid, you can't remember 95% of it. But there are these things like I remember just speaking to myself, like because, I had two different worlds. I had my grandparents' world where my mom would drop me off at my grandparents. Peaceful. I don't remember one time my grandparents raising their voice. Like never once was it like talking down, accusations. Like when I did something wrong, it wasn't like you did this, you did, like none of that stuff. So in that home, it was like peaceful. And then when I have a vivid memory, my mom picked me up one time, new boyfriend, new home. And I remember they got in this huge fist fight, dude, her and her boyfriend in this room. And they're just yelling and like punching each other, both of them. And then like my mom is screaming, like, he's looking, he's watching. And I remember just going like, what's happening? I had to have been like 7, 8 years old. Okay. So like seeing this happen in life, and thankfully like the physical abuse stuff, I never like took on for myself, but like the verbal assaulting was something that I always took on in relationships. Like if I felt attacked, if I felt hurt, if I felt abandoned, if I felt like somebody was like not paying attention to me, or like even if they're usually a verbal assault brings on another verbal assault, and then you're in it, and then words are flying like stinking bullets, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I picked that up, but the two different worlds that I lived in. But it's interesting. Like some people grew up in a home where they got the silent treatment from the parent. And that was their idea of communication, not communicating at all through their feelings or articulating it very well. So I was just curious to have that conversation with you guys, what that looked like. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, like, I think early on I wasn't as good as a communicator as I am now. It took me a long time to learn how to communicate better over time. But I think like thinking back to when I was like in high school, I always used to just like argue with my mom just because I just like, I don't know, that was like my response. She used to argue a lot with my dad early on. So I don't know, maybe that was kind of like the feedback loop in my mind was like always wanted the last word, always wanted to be right, always wanted to kind of put myself in those positions. And I think over time, like just one of the best things I think as a communicator is just the feedback loop, like understanding like the responses and the mannerisms that come with when I'm communicating to somebody and I can see somebody's mannerisms or how they're responding or how they're receiving what I'm saying, is a really good like place to practice. And I feel like as a communicator, this is like what I do in business. It's like when I'm talking to somebody, these are things I'm like hyper analyzing, you know what I mean? And that helps me kind of steer my communication in a way that I think that is a little more effective. And I think that's just like something I've developed over time. When it comes to communication personally.
Like an over self-awareness piece.
Yeah, discernment I think is the biggest, is like a healthy communicator, someone who has good discernment in my opinion, is someone who's like spatially aware of the room, socially aware of like situations and scenarios, spiritually aware of like what's happening in a certain time and place. And, I think that's a big piece of it for me is like, I'm a sponge. I think all of us are in this room, I would say, is like we're observers. We sit here and we observe every little critical thing. We watch people walk in and out of doors or, how they carry themselves or whatever that might be. And then that just helps me approach whoever I'm talking to in an effective way when it comes to communication. Yeah. So these are things that are constantly like, I just felt like cycling in my mind, but that feedback loop I think has been pretty critical for my ability to communicate,
Yeah. Read the room, self-awareness.
Early on, the biggest flaw I'd say too I had was just like talking about myself, like always, I think like learning as I got older, like, and accepting like flaws that I had. One of them was just like constantly talking about myself, like constantly like, and that came from a place of wanting to seek attention. It was like I wanted to make it about myself. I wanted to be, anytime there was a conversation, I needed to like interject and like turn the conversation back towards me. And I think like until I was around people that could call me out on that type of stuff in a healthy way, communicate to me effectively, I didn't realize how much of it like had an impact on my life. And so those are things that like I just over time started to develop with, healthy men in my life.
Yeah, that's good. Well, do you have the same experience as your brother as far as like what communication seemed like from your perspective growing up with your parents and stuff?
Yeah, I definitely so. I think what's interesting is a lot of our life experience, even though we've grown so close together, there are a lot of like we've experienced life differently, even though it was like as close as it possibly could be. So like I think when we were when we were like really young, that was the situation. But I think there's an element too where looking at it now, like God kind of blinded us to a lot of it. Like, yeah, we have early memories of it, but in that it was like there was no doubt that our parents loved us and wanted the best for us and always went above and beyond for us. So I think what I've recognized as I've gotten older and thought about it is once you get into like maybe like middle school and then definitely high school in that range, both our mom and our dad, they wanted to be like our best friends. They wanted to be really close to us. They really had that desire to be close to us, and they did it differently. So I think in communication, it was like there wasn't these super heated, extravagant, crazy arguments like because of a choice we made or things of that sort. I think because they wanted to be close friends with us, one, they didn't discipline us the way we should have been by any means. So that's another bit of a conversation. But like in that, I think it kind of taught us that like authority figures it can be more relaxed. It can be a little bit maybe more chill. It can be, at least that's a bit my perspective. Like I know I can go to my mom and talk to her about anything. Right. I even know, even with all that I've been through with my dad, like I could do that with my dad as well. And they set that I guess that level of communication like super young. But a lot of that had to do with hurt from their parents. So they were always more of friends than like anything. Right. So it kind of taught us to communicate like that.
That's cool because I can see that now in you guys to where it's like a lot of people have intimidation when it's speaking to bosses or speaking to other people. There is that sense of not feeling comfortable in a conversation. Yeah. So communication either never gets to like a genuine place. You know what I mean? Because of they're just constantly trying to say what the other person they feel like needs to hear, or how they need to hear it, right? Right. So that's really cool to see that. So funny talking about what you pick up from your parents, right? Because I think that's what we're on right now. London, the kids went with her and her kids after VBS yesterday and went and got yogurt. And she comes home and she goes, I noticed something in Parker that he says that you say a ton. And he says, to be honest, a lot. He's like, to be honest, like, vanilla is like my favorite flavor, but you know what I mean? Like to be honest, like you notice like these things that he has picked up from me. And then the thing too, that I know we've talked about, not with you guys necessarily, but like where Parker will constantly be like, love you, Dad. Like this check, like love you. And like those things where it's, with him, I always say, love you, buddy. Love you, buddy. Like, so like they're picking up those communication things from myself and from Carissa, and hopefully they're healthy. Some of them aren't going to be the greatest, but it's just, what other things do you think cause like or develop our communication? So we learn some stuff from our parents, right? Do you think that that's the only way that we develop our communication? Or do you think that like along the way, people that you've ran into, like, pulling like a sponge, like you said, from bits and from other people, like how to communicate. Do you think that communication only stems from what we learn, or do you think it stems from somewhere else? And I'm going somewhere with this, but I'd like just want to see your guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think, you obviously pick up things from people as you go throughout your journey of life. I think from teachers and from coaches. I think me and John were, we were surrounded by good people as we grew up in Bakersfield. Like our coaches were always good. I feel like our teachers were always good, and I feel like I picked up a lot of their communication skills. I think at the end of the day, like what I've learned about communicators is like less is more, and how someone carries themselves, I think, is really important. And how people receive what they're saying is different. And sometimes the person who's the loudest in the room isn't being really heard, if that makes sense. And they're not being really well received. And so I think like over time, as I've like just, have grown up around different people in my life, teachers, coaches, etc., I've learned that just like a healthy way of communicating is one, like how you carry yourself too, is like, less is more. And so those are all things I just try to apply to my life. But yeah, like I 100% would say that I've learned a lot from those people in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. I think 20 to 25 were so formative for my communication. A lot of that had to do with like a community of people that we were exposed to that introduced us to a lot of what they call like self-education and like all these different motivational speakers and all these different books. And I actually really took that seriously and like dove all in, even though in school I wasn't the best student because I didn't care to be there. Like once I started getting into communication, and a lot of it had to do with this business and trying to increase sales and learn how to be the best communicator. But like you start to read these books and then it starts to hit you like, this isn't about sales. This isn't about like, this is, if you're really genuinely trying to learn these things and you're being honest with who you are when you're communicating, like you can actually communicate with people very, very effectively. You can learn how to do it. So there is I don't know, I guess in my experience, there's a desire behind it. We're like, man, I want to be able to communicate better and I want to be able to have deeper, closer relationships. And there's a lot of information out there that you can pick up. I mean, legendary books that will teach you how to do these things. So some of that I think has impacted my life.
Yeah, I think being in sports and like stepping into leadership roles like in that helped develop a lot of characteristics that, you know, maybe we carry today, but also too, you know, John's point, I think that network marketing company that we, you know, dove 2 feet in at a certain age of our life, like really put us out there, put us in a vulnerable place to step in front of a lot of people and communicate something that we believed in. That helped us develop a lot of skills. And we were around a lot of people that like really preached positive mindset and law of attraction and all these, you know, that whole world of, you know, what you think about, you bring about, et cetera, et cetera. But there was a lot of people who communicated very well and effectively and then had great businesses in that space. So surrounding ourselves around those people, making sure that we are in those inner circles really, I think, helped us tremendously at that age and honestly opened our minds to a different perspective on how to do things. And I think that was a big piece of our puzzle, in my opinion. It's probably one of the most impactful seasons of my entire life, if you want me to be honest with you. It really took me from one place as an individual to another. Just watching people, how they carry themselves and how they communicated in front of rooms of people was just so striking.
Yeah. And knowing your guys' story a little bit. So you guys were pretty much out on your own at an earlier age, right? And you guys kind of went your own directions at some point, right? We're different states, different jobs. But the idea is that you guys both, if I'm picking up what you're saying, held in pretty high value, like making it on your own. So communication is a part of that, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you got to have a job. So you saw that as something that was valuable, right? And I think that's kind of what I'm hoping to get across today to people that are watching this is like the communication and putting thought behind it. Like we could talk about this in business, relationally, our relationship with God. Like it is very valuable to like put intentionality into the way that you communicate, because this is across the board. You two are about to get married at some point in time in the near future. Okay. It's not a prophetic statement, dude. Like
no,
you
it's
guys
true.
You're hoping that you guys are dating in hopes to make it official at some point.
There's no hoping. It's going to be official.
It's going to be official.
We're 20. Well, I'm 2027. I don't know about this guy.
Okay.
I guess he can't slip any secrets right now either.
Right. Yeah. I'm not trying to put you on blast, but the idea is like people are in their relationships and they hear this, and we can steer the outcome of our relationships by the way that we communicate.
Oh yeah.
The way we develop children, I'm assuming you guys are going to want to have kids. Like I'm in the thick of it now. You guys will be there. The way that we communicate to our kids will affect them as they get older, whether you're screaming at them, whether you never talk to them, whether you're speaking death over them, whether you're speaking life over them, right? I have that verse down. What is it in Proverbs 18, that death and life are in the power of the tongue. Right. So like communication at its core in business, you can destroy your business or you can actually improve your business dependent on the way that you communicate. So like there's value in it. I think we're all on the same page. One thing that I wanted to get to was this came up. It's the verse in Luke 6:45. And I want to have a good conversation around this. It says, the good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. And I don't think I paid attention. You don't really pay attention, except for you guys. It sounds like you, at an earlier age than myself, started putting value behind learning how to communicate healthy. I didn't through my 20s. Like I was the foot in my mouth type of individual. I destroyed many relationships because of one reason or another, but it had to, from stuff that came out of my mouth. I probably hindered myself from getting promotions at work because I was, you know what I mean? I wanted to just speak my piece. I wanted to say things that I wanted to say when I wanted to say it. And one of the things that I learned, the phrase along the way, was learn how to respond instead of react. Right? But the reactive part speaks to what's in a person's heart, I think. So like, if you pay close enough attention, like you were speaking to earlier, like discernment is a huge piece in developing healthy communication, reading the room. I have something to say. Should I say this right now? Will this benefit the moment right now if I say this, right? Or will I just cause a fire? Right. James says the tongue is wild, that it's uncontrollable, that no man is perfect when it comes to taming the tongue. It's unbridled, right? So learning all of those things, but I if I can look back, and I notice it now in people, and it's important to say that we're not licensed therapists or psychiatrists. So these are just our opinions. That way people, don't come back on us. But like I've learned, which I'm assuming in our conversation you guys have too, that when you're listening to somebody, you can get a kind of pick up a beat of where that communication's coming out of, whether it's pride, whether it's fear, whether it's anger, whether it's self-promotion, right? Whether it's insecurity or jealousy, right? Like you can start to pick up what's coming out. Especially, it's easy when somebody's angry and they're venting or they're expressing. Like that's pretty easy. Everybody should be able to tell. But as you pay attention to those things, I guess my question is for you guys: how does anger or any of these emotions, right? Why do you think they affect the way that we communicate? And have you had any of those that you've noticed come out as you've been working on your communication?
Yeah, I mean, emotions can drive all of your communication, to body language, to nonverbal, to verbal. It can all stem from that source of the emotion, whether that be anger or sadness or hurt, right? So absolutely, I think communication should never be driven from the emotion. So I think the approach I try to take is that when it's time to communicate, have I stepped back and am I aware of the emotion that I'm experiencing before I go to communicate fully what I'm about to communicate? Because my emotion is not the determining truth of the situation or the person or the job. So there is an element of, I think, self-awareness of your own emotion. Why are you feeling that before you go in and communicate? Or else, like emotion is the driver, and when emotion is driving something, it can take your vehicle places you don't want to go.
It's real quick. What comes into my mind is like the reels where the guy's driving. Yeah. And we do this too, where you forget that you're driving and you look up and you're just like, whoa, where did this take me? Yeah. Like unexpected. You let your emotions take control of the conversation, and now you've taken yourself down a lane, and you have to pivot accordingly. Yeah.
And then it's even harder to apologize, and you start getting into some of this stuff. But a couple things that I would add, like on the emotion side of things, is one, I've read this in a book a while ago, but it was talking a little bit about conflict, right? Okay. And because I think when we talk emotion, like a lot of time there's some type of conflict, right? Usually if it's business or mentor-mentee or wife-husband or something. One is I read this definition of conflict that I thought was so interesting, and it was that conflict is the perceived incompatible goals. Incompatible goals. So like if me and Shane are like in conflict, it's because him and I have a perception, he has a perception that our goal is incompatible. Okay. Which is not always true. Right. It's like usually our goal is exactly the same. But unless one of us can step back and like put the emotion aside and at least ask some questions, and kind of like soothe and like kind of like, come into this thing nice and soft, then everything blows up. Yeah. But most of the time when it comes to conflict in general with the people you love or the people you're working with, you actually don't have different goals. They're just perceived to be different goals. Or the avenue in which you're seeing that it takes to get to a certain place is different, right? But at the end game, it's like, you hear it all the time. It's like, I think we're saying the same thing. Exactly. But we're viewing this differently, right? So yeah, and at some point, it's like in maturity, can you step back and be like, all right, me and this guy are saying the exact same thing, so let me just allow him to say what he needs to say, and I'm okay with what he's saying, so let me just come behind that. And we're good, and I think if you're able to manage your emotions, then you're golden. I'd also say on the element of conflict, there's something I read about argumenting, like being argumentative. And it was like the problem with arguments is that, one, if you lose an argument, you feel like crap, right? Like if you lose an argument, you feel like crap. No one wants to lose an argument. You'll go hard at it, right? That's why this guy, he's always so fired up about LeBron James, because he doesn't want to lose an argument that he knows is not true. But like he just keeps going on about LeBron being a GOAT, though we know that's not true.
That's not true.
Anyways, we're not going to go there right now. We're gonna control our emotions.
Or the people that just, they know they're wrong, but they want to argue just for the sake of arguing, right? Okay.
Right. But where I'm going with this really quick is just in arguing, one is, if you lose an argument, you feel like crap. But if you win an argument, you've made the other person feel like crap. So have you really won? If either A, you're going to feel like crap, or B, you're going to make somebody else feel like crap. And then I think when you take that idea and go, well, do I really want my wife to feel like crap? Do I want my kids to feel like crap? Do I really want my own boss that also controls the rest of the decisions moving forward? Do I want to make that person feel like crap? No, so I think I'm gonna be sure they're leaving my presence with a good experience.
That is such a good perspective to have. That was the thing, was like one of the next questions was like, what's the difference between winning an argument and strengthening your relationship? And like, to your point, you said it perfectly. If you win the argument, you don't really win. Right. So it's like it kind of shifts the perspective of, even if there is a conflict, even if there is an offense, the way that I communicate, because usually we're just thinking about us, to your point. We're just thinking about us when we communicate, whether it's in our relationship, whether it's in our workspace. We want to be heard. We want to be understood, right? One of the key things when Chris and I were going through our therapy sessions a few years ago that the gentleman gave us, it was like, obviously haven't forgot it was so powerful. There was the 3 sections, right? So there was 2 sides. There was 6 sections, but both sides were the same. So you had child, parent, adult, right? I'm pretending like you guys can see this form. I'm having to picture it. Under child were all these like words that basically kind of like, accusations or sentences or words that a child would use, a parent, and then an adult, so on and so forth. So underneath each one were all these words. And he said, in relationships, he said, sometimes you'll see dysfunction because both people are communicating to each other like children. And that's not healthy. That's not where you want to be. In other relationships, you see a person who's the parent and a person who's talking to the other person like they're the child. And so there's this type of relationship and communication where it's like you're talking down to them, they're this person, you're the parent. Then there's the parent to parent, where you get in these arguments where, like you said, where if you win, do you really win? Because you're trying to lecture or get the other person to understand your way, and at the end it's like nobody feels cared for or heard. Never ends well. He said the place that you want to be is adult to adult. That's how you want to communicate healthy as adults. Communicate like adults. So that's, hey, for me and my wife, it's like we get in this conversation, maybe I express my emotions and they're not heard, or vice versa. It's like, hey, let's pause this real quick. I need to know that I understand how you feel, but I need you to understand that right now I feel this way. This is the way that you've made me feel, and I'm frustrated about it. And I need to be able to feel the way that I feel. I can't pretend like I don't feel this way, but I want to be able to talk through it, even if you disagree. Right? Yep. Like setting the tone to where it's not like pushing my way through, like, understand me, like you're just not getting it, da 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 da. Like, okay, let's bring it down.
There's like, it goes back to those you and I statements, like you did this, you aren't good at this, or you can't communicate well. It's like a lot of times in conflict, you realize that when people aren't healthy communicators, they start with you. And it's really, I feel this when this happens, or I, don't appreciate when this, it's communicating it differently, is a place to start. So it could be received differently. Yeah. And so Michael Miller from Upper Room, he has this whole thing where he does a relationship huddle every Monday. It's something I've implemented in my relationship
with his wife.
Okay. Or they have it's a date. You call it date night, relationship, whatever. But the whole purpose.
I like relationship huddle.
Yeah. So
bring football into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've implemented this in my relationship, and the reason being is because I've identified early on that, like, sometimes me and my significant other, we don't communicate the best, right? We have challenges with communication, right? It could be my issue, it could be her issue, whatever it might be. What I want to do though is set a stage for us to be able to receive what each other are communicating to each other. Mm-hmm. And so Michael Miller talked about doing this in the sense of, like, the person that you marry is going to be the most important person in your life, like over your children, everything. And so he prioritized one night a week to get with his wife and for a period of time to have a conversation or set the table for connection, not correction. Because in a lot of times when we're having conversations and arguments, we're trying to correct the other person. Mm. We're not trying to connect with them. And so setting aside intentional time to be able to connect with your significant other, so you can share something that is set a stage that can be well received, has been so critical for my relationship. And I took that from him and his podcast about marriage, or his sermon about marriage, and applied it to my own relationship, and it's been extremely effective. And it's because one, when me and my significant other get in an argument or start to have conflict, right, we decided to set it aside to have this conversation on Monday, right? Or when we have our relationship huddle.
So you put it on pause.
We put it on pause, yes. Or say, hey, is this something you want to communicate now, or is this something that can wait till Monday? And 99% of the time, we can wait till Monday. But what that does is allows the person to sit and think with the emotions that they are experiencing. Okay. And then by the time Monday comes, they have collected their thoughts together to be able to communicate effectively on Monday what that made them feel like and why. And it creates just a stage for us to be able to communicate effectively. And don't be wrong, the first couple relationship huddles we had were drawn out, long, drawn out 4-hour conversations. But over time,
long huddle, couple delay of games if we're talking football terms.
yeah. Over time, they've got a lot better and a lot more effective. And it's been something where, you don't want to lose that connection with your significant other. And I think a lot of times communication is what breaks that down. It's usually the place that I see a lot of issues in people's relationships. And it's like, we're going to set some intentional time aside to be able to communicate. And the whole idea is connection, not correction.
Yeah, I love that. So the takeaway is, like, one of the major emphasis on communication is connection. Mm-hmm. So you could take that in business or relationally, right? That if you're not connecting, it's not going to be great. Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest things is you're wanting to connect. So even with sales, you're wanting to connect with that individual before hitting them with the sales pitch, right? Because that just makes things seem more genuine, right? Which is the goal. It's so funny. I would love to see that happen in real time, where I just pictured, that's why I had that smile on my face where you're talking, John, too. It's like you and your lady just having this, disagreement, and you going like, all right, let's put this on pause. You want to talk about this Monday? Okay. And then moving on with whatever your day is.
That's a skill in itself.
I would love to see that play out.
I'm a person that when there's an issue, I want to get it solved ASAP.
Yeah, me too.
So to be able to pause and be like, well, we love each other enough to continue life, and then we'll go back to that. Kudos. Very mature. That's great,
because that was my style when Chris and I were first married. Yeah. If we disagreed on something or we were getting in an argument, she would she's not ready to talk about it. She's not ready. She's like shut down, and then she'd walk away. Yeah. And Shane would walk after her. Go like, no. We're talking about this right now. Communication has to happen now. Like, I can't sit on this.
Well, right? I will say, now it's like an indicator when I know I'm in trouble, because she'll be like, I'll hear the words like, we'll talk about it on Monday. And I'm like, oh dang, I didn't know you're fired up about this. So now it's kind of an indicator for me of like, oh dang, like, all right, we something happened,
dude. Oh man.
That's good though. I mean, you guys have good, healthy outlets of communication. That's awesome.
That's good. And I do like the aspect, because I think, like what we said before, you can redirect your relationship. You can completely destroy it if you were to react in the moment instead of respond. So one way to stop you from doing that in your relationship is to go like, hey, we need to put a pin in this. Let us go back, get unemotional as much as we can about this whatever it is, so that we can communicate in a healthy way, which is great.
And that's exactly why we implemented it. Just kind of like what John said earlier, your emotions can take you down somewhere that, at the end of it, you didn't want to end up in that destination. Right. And so for us, it was like, there was a lot of reacting early on. And it was like, how do we prevent this reaction? Let's just set a stage and a time to be able to.
That's good.
So one thing, now that we're on this vein, just working with people have a difficult time having confrontational conversations, like if they're offended or if they're feeling a certain way, specifically even with their bosses, right? Or, if you're walking into a conversation with your spouse, you're like, oh man, this is going to set a nuclear bomb if I have this conversation with them. How do you communicate disappointment and offense in a healthy way? So in relationally, without, like you said, tearing the other person down, right? Or like coming in with accusations. You know what I mean? When you're trying, because that's typically what you did this, so it makes me feel this way, right? Whether that's with your boss or with your significant other.
Yeah, when you start doing the you thing, it starts to get what happens is the other person has to start defending themselves. And then when they start defending themselves, that's typically when the conflict starts to happen. But to answer your question directly, one thing I do in business, and this is just a me thing that I've learned, from the best way for me to communicate with upper management or my boss, whoever that might be, is the first thing I say to every boss, or the first time I have my first conversation with my new boss, whoever that might be, I say, I need to have a place of transparent dialogue with you. If we cannot have transparency in our dialogue, then it creates a lot of issues with how I can communicate with you, and you can communicate with me. And so for me, it's really important that's step one, because I don't want things to be sugar-coated. I want things to be raw. I want the feedback so I can learn and grow from whatever things I need to grow from. But if you sugarcoat things, you beat around the bush with me, it doesn't feel like you're being honest with me. And for me, trust is extremely important. So I think two pillars of that is honesty and transparency. And so I try to get to that place as fast as I can in the business world, in the work world. For myself, is just because I need you to be honest with me. I need you to be transparent with me. Give me the benefit of the doubt that I'm mature enough to receive whatever you need to tell me, and vice versa. So we can start to build a pillar of trust, right, and work towards the same goal. And so that's one of the first things I establish in communication with my employees below me or my bosses above me, is a dialogue of transparency. And then from there, I think you can kind of learn as you listen to people, where some of their communication comes from, like insecurities or anger or whatever that might be. But at least that's the established foundation. Right. So we can build on top of that.
That's really good, because I'm the same way too. So it's even when I'm talking to other people, it's like a preface, right? Hey, I want to let you know this is the type of person that I am. I'm a communicator. So if we have an issue, I'm going to communicate it with you. So that way I'm setting expectations for the other person. So if I do have a communication that's confrontational, I'm not hitting them out of the something that they're not expecting from me, right? And in the same sense too, if I come to them and need communication from them, they already know, oh, this is important for Shane, right? Yeah. So whether that's bosses, because what I see so often in business is people will actually quit jobs if the boss doesn't create a safe space for them to communicate. And so you'll lose valuable employees that you didn't have to lose, all because whatever they were feeling, whether it was disgruntled, or it all comes down to, all you needed to do was have a healthy conversation and give them a safe space to have that. And they would never have and would take care of it. Just like in our relationships, if we never have a safe space for our spouses to communicate to us, it creates distance. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it fractures everything.
Yeah, they say people don't quit jobs, they quit their bosses, and it's the truth. It's the more conflict there is with your management or your manager, the more willing the more likelihood you're going to walk away, right? It's not really necessarily the job as much as it is the person you work for.
100%, because most people realize that a job is a job. This is what I teach my boys. You're going to go and you're going to get a job, and even if it's something that you love, there's going to be any given day where you go I don't want to be here today. Yeah. Or this sucks. Right. But if you're doing it with people that you love to do it with, right, and if there's a healthy workspace, then it's dude, I'm in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Another thing too is to be very self-aware of like the hills you're willing to die on. Like it's one thing someone told me a long time ago. It's like, are you really willing to die on that hill? And I'm just like, when you're communicating with people, it's like, there's a time and a place for everything, in my opinion. But it's like whatever I'm frustrated about or feeling anger about, or there's a lot of emotions behind, it's like, is this a hill I'm willing to die on? And I feel like I don't always need to be right. Pick and choose your battles, in my opinion, going back to my statement around less is more. It's like, if I'm always constantly showing up complaining about something, right, I start to become like the boy who cries wolf. Like it's what I'm saying is not being received at this point. And so it's just like pick and choose the thing that you are really willing to die on a hill for. And I think those are the type of conversations, like, or things I try to remind myself of in conversations with people.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I think one of the things, as we wrap this up here in a few minutes, because I know you have to get off to a meeting, is I've learned that asking questions in conversations is far more valuable than speaking whatever it is that I want to get across, whether 100%. It's my feelings, whether it's my emotions. Like, you're helping the other person feel like they're being heard. So going back to John's wonderful point, like, this is, if you take nothing away from this, is communication. You should always keep the other person in mind. So asking a lot of questions, and what that does is like lets them feel heard, for one. So any kind of resistance from them that they could have had, you're tearing down those walls by honoring how they're feeling. Let me understand, like in a, even with my wife, I use the phrase, make this make sense to me. And maybe that's not the best way to, like, I use this all the time, not just with my wife, but it's like, help me understand this, make this make sense. Like, tell me how you see the situation. So then I can understand. So if I'm missing any pieces and I formulated some kind of thought process in my mind, and that's now turned into an emotion because of that, if I'm wrong, I want to know. And then there's just stuff where, like you said, like, I know that I'm right and I want to go in, and I got to learn to get better at that. But yeah, just asking a lot of questions. Yeah. And I think it leads to a better conversation, a more fruitful conversation.
Well, it gets people thinking, and it's like, that's literally Jesus' whole ministry. It's like every time someone said something to him, he asked a question back, It's like, and it gets, that's the point of it all, is like, you got to have people thinking about the things that they're doing, because the people are just operating in autopilot. And so it's just like when someone comes to you and says something, it's like, asking them a question back stops them kind of in their tracks and gets them thinking about the thing that they're saying. So I feel like you see this all over the Bible, with Jesus. It's like constantly answering a question with the question, It's like extremely critical.
One scripture I wanted to share on that note, that this is a scripture that I stand on for like all of my communication, everything from interpersonal to intrapersonal to being in front of a crowd. Proverbs 17:27. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. So I think this scripture speaks volumes to what it means to be a man that follows Jesus, that abides by God's word, and this idea of like, he who has a cool spirit. I think that's the question that when I get into maybe more like one-on-one conversations with people about communication, it's like, take this scripture, hold on to it, and like, be a man that has a cool spirit. Like, stay cool in all the things, and how you're speaking and what you're saying and how you're approaching things. And the Bible says that's the man that actually has the understanding, that has the knowledge. So I think it's just important. I keep that in the back of my mind a lot, where I'm like, is my spirit getting riled up and fired up, and or is it like, am I abiding by this word and just keeping with a cool spirit?
Yeah, staying like,
even keel
when in the high moments and in the low moments, never get too high, never get too low.
The scripture that sparked in my mind once you shared that one was the other one. I'm not sure if it's in Psalms or in Proverbs. It says a man who can't control his temper, his anger is like a city with broken down walls. Basically meaning, like, if you were a city with broken down walls, anybody could come in and steal and kill and all of those things. You had no protection. So it's like, when you lose your temper, when you lose your cool, you are giving full freedom for just anything to come in and just steal from you. Yeah. You know what I mean? I like this conversation. You can go with this in so many different ways, but we got to take a pause. So I got ministered to about like what you said, and then even you bringing that Matt Miller thing up is just to kind of circle this around, to leave with the exclamation, connection. So communication, connection is an emphasis with communication. Like we should go in thinking like, I want to connect with this person, whether it's conflict, offense, whatever have you, spouse, business. You want to leave more connected, which leads to your point was when you're communicating, it can't just be thinking about yourself. Like if you're winning an argument, are you really winning an argument? Like that is such good wisdom. Communication is the thing that I value the most in my life. It really is. Probably speaks to why like I'm a words of affirmation person. If you're, a person who believes in the love languages, like words can lift a person up and tear a person down. It can redirect a river. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I have a high value on it, and I want to get better at communicating. And I want to like take this whole thing when we talk about communication too, like people are like, yeah, see, they'll go to their spouse like, told you weren't supposed to cuss. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, hold on, let's just like, we're talking about the heart of like communication.
Yeah.
Right. We're not just talking about the surface level stuff. Right. So
if I can say one thing too, like there's power in your words. Right. So one thing we always got to remind ourselves is like speak life over people. Right. It's like, I think so many times, I see people speaking negatively about themselves out loud, or speaking negative to people. It's like you gotta speak life to people, and that starts with yourself. You gotta speak life to yourself, and that's being in the Word, reading the Scripture, understanding your identity, understanding that the Word is living and true. And so, just remind yourself of those things when you're in communication. It's like this person does not hold power over me. Like my job is not my provider. I am a son of God. Like these are things that I think constantly reminding myself in as I go into conversations really helps me keep a cool spirit through the process.
Yeah, that's good. Just something else coming to mind. We're just going to hit a bunch of nuggets before we leave today. It's like you hear this phrase a lot, that clear communication is healthy communication. And a lot of people use that as like this, like a license to be able to communicate harshly. Because I'm clear it's healthy. It's like, I want to like tear that apart too. People that speak that way or just want like an excuse to be able to speak like that, you're being intentional in what you're doing. Like, so clear communication doesn't mean that it has to be like tearing somebody down or being direct for the sake of being direct. Like we all have the ability to communicate kindly, no matter if it's in correction or if it's in building up. Like you choose the way. It's like, what's the old saying? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's like tearing down this idea that clear communication just automatically means it's healthy. No, I could be clearly a jerk when I say something, and everything I say could be crystal clear. You know what I mean? Or I could say something and you can walk away knowing that you're loved, even though what I said could have been harsh or we could not been seen eye to eye.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like I said, we could go round and round and round talking about this, and I'm sure there's smarter people out there. And again, you could say that the conversation that we had today was subjective, what have you. I just know that you two communicate so well, and I really look up to the way that you guys communicate, and I want to get better, and I know that's what you guys want to too. I don't want to destroy any more relationships. I don't want to, break things down with my words. I want to build things up with my words. So thank you guys for being on, and I know we can continue this conversation again later. But hopefully you guys got something out of today. Yeah, and have a good week.
Go be good communicators.
Go be good communicators. You know what I mean? Like, care about what you say. Yeah. This is the gist.
Care about the people.
Let's just not let our mouths fly off the handle just for the sake of flying off the handle. You know what I mean?
You need like a Mr. Rogers Mr. Rogers like ends his thing.
Absolutely.
He's like, go love your neighbor. Or is that what he says?
Well, sure. Something but like that. When Mr. Rogers came in,
you need like a
right. He comes in the door. Yeah. And takes off his sweater.
You would look good in a sweater vest.
You know what I'm saying?
Sweater vest guy? Sweater vest guy?
Shoes, which, can we just say, like, Mr. Rogers, why are you taking off your shoes? You know what I mean? Like, to get this party started. You know what I'm saying? Like,
hey, in Asia, you have to take your shoes off when you walk in the house.
I guess.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we should probably do that in our house, too. Take your shoes off. But
get grounded.
That's just a lot, dude.
Try to get grounded.
Get grounded before you communicate.
Get grounded. There you go.
So
cool.
All right, that's fun.